There exists a unique kind of mental and physical strength that makes a person appear almost invincible, untouchable, and unshakable in the face of any challenge. Today, you're going to uncover the story of a man who attained that extraordinary level of resilience more than 400 years ago, and learn how you can do the same. Think about the kind of person who never seems to break, who confronts every situation without hesitation, without retreating, and without making deals with themselves to ease the struggle. While most people are busy creating excuses for their failures or surrendering at the first sign of difficulty, this person keeps moving forward, no matter what stands in their way. And what do others usually say about people like that? They call them lucky. They claim it's because of genetics or privilege, or that their success is due to who they know rather than what they've endured. But what most people refuse to acknowledge is that this kind of strength comes with a heavy price, one that few are willing to pay. During Japan's Tokugawa era, there lived a man who understood this truth better than anyone else. He fought and won more than 60 duels, beginning at the age of 13, and he never lost a single one. If you followed this channel before, you probably already know who I'm referring to. His name, perhaps already in the title of this video, is Miyamoto Musashi. He was not the most muscular or the fastest warrior of his time, but what set him apart was something far greater, an indestructible mind that never hesitated and a body that refused to acknowledge limits. Near the end of his life, Musashi recorded his philosophy and strategies in a book called Gorin no Sho, or the Book of Five Rings. Within its pages lies the precise roadmap for transforming your mind and body into something unbreakable, something so powerful that others will look upon you and think you possess a strength beyond human reach. How is that even possible? You might ask. But here's the catch. Musashi's method wasn't about motivation or inspiration. It was about elimination. He didn't build his strength by adding new habits, possessions, or technique. Instead, he became powerful by stripping away everything that stood in his way, everything that distracted him or weakened his resolve. Before I explain how this system truly works, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell me, what is your biggest mental or physical weakness that you want to eliminate? Your engagement really helps the channel reach more people who can benefit from this message, and I genuinely enjoy reading your comments and interacting with you. Thank you for being here and giving your attention. Now let's get back to the video. Chapter 1. The Awakening. The story I'm about to share begins with a man named Lucas, an ordinary guy living an ordinary life. He was a 32-year-old engineer, married, and a father of 2. On the surface, his life seemed fine, stable, typical, and unremarkable. But beneath that normal exterior, Lucas struggled with something deeper: weakness. Not just physical weakness, but mental weakness too. Every morning he woke up telling himself that today would be different, that he would finally work out, eat clean, and take control. He even bought gym memberships, 3 times in fact, and cancelled every single one. He started diets on Mondays only to break them by Wednesday. He promised himself he would rise early, but instead, he hit the snooze button 7 times before dragging himself out of bed. The pattern was always the same: strong intentions followed by weak execution. And that wasn't the end of it. When challenges arose at work, Lucas froze. When his job demanded quick thinking and courage, he hesitated. When it came time to have difficult conversations with his wife, he avoided them, putting off what needed to be said. His life became a cycle of avoidance, excuses, and self-disappointment. He knew he was capable of more, yet something inside him kept holding him back. When his children needed guidance, discipline, or lessons about values, Lucas always left it to his wife to handle. He avoided confrontation, responsibility, and the discomfort that came with taking charge. His life had become a routine of reactions, rather than deliberate actions. He was living on autopilot, drifting through his days without direction. That was until one fateful day when everything came crashing down. In the middle of an important meeting with his boss, Lucas experienced a sudden panic attack. His heart began pounding uncontrollably. His palms turned clammy, and the entire room seemed to spin around him, overwhelmed and disoriented. He was forced to step out of the meeting. Afterward, Lucas visited a doctor to understand what was happening to him. All his medical tests came back normal, but the diagnosis was clear: stress, anxiety, and a lack of mental fitness. The doctor said something that struck him deeply, something that changed the way Lucas saw himself. Your body is responding to threats that don't exist, the doctor explained, because your mind hasn't learned to distinguish between real danger and simple discomfort. You need to train your nervous system. Those words echoed in Lucas's mind. As he left the office, he realized that his weakness wasn't just in his body, it was rooted in his mind. Determined to change, Lucas went home and began researching everything he could about mentally training and resilience. He wanted to understand how to build real inner strength, the kind that doesn't crumble under pressure. That's when he stumbled upon the teachings of Miyamoto Musashi. More specifically, he discovered that Musashi hadn't written a simple philosophy book. He had created a manual of warfare designed for life itself. Chapter 2: The Principle of Elimination. The first concept Lucas encountered in the Book of Five Rings seemed confusing and even contradictory. It said, "Have no preferences. Do not depend on any particular weapon." At first, Lucas couldn't grasp the meaning. How could someone become strong without having preferences? How could mastery exist without relying on specific tools or conditions? Then, as he read deeper, Musashi's lesson became clear. True strength doesn't depend on perfect circumstances. If you can only train when you have the right equipment, you are weak. If you can only meditate when the room is silent, you are weak. If you can only focus when you're well rested, you are weak. Real power lies in the ability to perform under any condition, no matter how imperfect. Musashi trained himself to adapt to everything. He practiced with wooden swords, metal swords, 2 swords, 1 sword, or sometimes none at all. He fought under the burning sun, in freezing cold, in rain, and in darkness because he understood that the enemy never waits for you to be ready. Strength was not about comfort, it was about preparation for chaos. Lucas realized that he was living in the exact opposite way. He could only be productive at the office, only focused when things were quiet, and only confident when life went according to plan. The moment anything fell out of place, his strength disappeared, and that's when he finally understood what Musashi had meant, to become unbreakable. He had to stop adding and start eliminating. He realized that every aspect of his discipline was conditional. Lucas could only work out if he had slept well the night before. He could only eat healthy meals if his wife had prepared them. His entire sense of commitment and consistency was built on external circumstances that he couldn't always control. When life was comfortable, he was strong. When it wasn't, he fell apart. That's when he decided to truly apply Musashi's method, the principle of elimination. Instead of trying to add more structure, motivation, or comfort to his life, he began removing everything that made him dependent. It started with something simple: push-ups. No fancy gym, no equipment, no scheduled time, just his body and the floor. He set a modest goal: 20 push-ups a day, at any time, in any place, under any condition. The first week was easy. His motivation was high and his body still fresh. By the second week, the muscle soreness began to creep in. By the third week, a work trip disrupted his routine. By the fourth, he came down with the flu. These were the points where he had always quit before. But this time he remembered Musashi's teaching. Practice must continue regardless of circumstances. So Lucas adapted. On the road, he did push-ups in his hotel room. When he was sick, he cut the number in half, 10 instead of 20. On days when he was utterly drained, he did just 5. But he never did 0. That was the rule. No matter what, there would always be something. This small but relentless act began to rewire his mind. Each repetition became less about building muscle and more about building discipline, about proving to himself that he could act even when things weren't perfect. Chapter 3: Hyojoshin, the still mind. By day 40, Lucas's body had adjusted to the physical routine. Push-ups no longer required effort or motivation. They had become automatic, yet his mind was still a battlefield of anxiety, worry, and thoughts of work stress, financial struggles, and the possibility of disappointing his family clouded his every moment. His body was getting stronger, but mentally, he still felt fragile. That's when he discovered one of Musashi's deepest and most important teachings: Hyojoshin, the everyday mind, the mind that remains still, calm, and unchanged no matter what happens. Musashi wrote, "At the moment of battle, your mind should be exactly the same as your mind when you are drinking tea. No excitement, no fear, just presence." The simplicity of it struck Lucas, but it also seemed impossible. How could someone remain calm when facing danger? or even death. How could the same mind exist in peace and in chaos? Musashi's answer was both harsh and liberating. You train your mind not to react. You don't suppress fear or pretend it isn't there. Instead, you become a person who doesn't need to respond to it. So, Lucas began testing this principle in his daily life. Whenever he felt stress rising during arguments, deadlines, or moments of doubt, he focused on observing the feeling rather than fighting it. He learned to breathe, to stay aware, to let the emotion pass without letting it control his actions. Slowly, he began to feel a shift. The fear, the anxiety, the hesitation, they were still there, but they no longer dictated what he did. His mind, once chaotic and fragile, was becoming still. Every time Lucas felt anxiety creeping in, whether it was during heavy traffic, a tense meeting at work, or an argument with his wife, he forced himself to do one simple thing: take a deep breath and observe. He didn't fight the emotion, didn't run from it, and didn't let it control him. Instead, he watched it as though it were happening to someone else. My heart is racing, my hands are sweating, my jaw feels tight. He would silently note each sensation without judgment and without reaction. At first, it felt like torture. His entire body screamed for release. His instinct was to argue, defend, or flee. But he resisted the urge and continued to just observe. The first real test of this practice came during a meeting when his boss unexpectedly began yelling at him in front of the entire team. Normally, Lucas would have frozen, his palms dripping with sweat, his voice cracking as he struggled to respond. But this time was different. He felt the wave of fear rise inside him, recognized it, and simply let it be. He continued speaking calmly, his voice steady and clear, his hands dry, his expression composed. His boss seemed taken aback, and his co-workers looked stunned. But Lucas knew exactly what had happened. He had reached Hyojoshin, the mind that doesn't move. Science would later confirm what Musashi had discovered centuries earlier. A neuroscientist from Stanford University who has spent 18 years studying emotional regulation explains that when you repeatedly practice non-reactive observation of difficult emotions, you are literally retraining your brain. The amygdala, the part responsible for triggering fear and panic, begins to rewire itself. Over time, the activation threshold rises, meaning that what once caused intense anxiety now only sparks calm recognition. The emotion still appears, but it no longer overpowers you. Chapter 4. Sen No Ri, the Way of the Warrior. Musashi, however, understood something essential. A calm mind alone is not enough. Inner peace without physical capability is an illusion. You can have perfect emotional control, but if your body is weak, your composure will crumble the moment life demands strength. Musashi wrote, "Train hard with wooden swords to strengthen the body. When the body is weak, the mind wavers. When the body is strong, the mind remains firm." Lucas had now been doing push-ups consistently for 60 days. His endurance had improved, his muscles were more defined, and his energy was higher. But he had not yet faced true physical adversity. Musashi never trained in comfort. He sought discomfort as a teacher, pushing his limits until there were none left. Inspired by that philosophy, Lucas decided to set a new challenge, one that seemed almost insane: 100 push-ups every single day for 30 days. No matter how long it took, no matter how many breaks he needed, the goal was simple: complete all 100 every day without fail. On the first day, it took him 45 grueling minutes to finish. His arms trembled, his breath came in short bursts, and his body screamed for rest. But he did not quit. This was no longer just exercise, it was a battle against his own limits, an initiation into the warrior's way. By day 5, Lucas's arms felt like lead. Every muscle burned, every movement ached, and the simple act of lifting his hands was exhausting. By day 10, his wife began to worry, telling him he was pushing himself too far, and that no one needed to prove anything through that kind of pain. But Lucas wasn't trying to prove anything to anyone else. He was testing his own limits. By day 15, he managed to complete all 100 push-ups in just 20 minutes. By day 30, he did them in 12 minutes without stopping. His breath steady, his form controlled, but the true transformation wasn't in his body, it was in his mind. When you show yourself that something once impossible is actually achievable, your relationship with difficulty changes forever. Challenges stop feeling like barriers and start becoming simple steps along the path. You stop negotiating with pain, hesitation, or fatigue. You just do what must be done. Musashi called this Sen No Ri, the way of the warrior. It's not about talent, luck, or natural ability. It's about eliminating the illusion that there are things beyond your reach. If you train long enough and commit deeply enough, there is nothing you cannot do. Chapter 5. Zanshin, Permanent Consciousness. With time, Lucas became stronger, his body more capable, his mind calmer and more disciplined. But there was one final principle Musashi spoke of, one that separated ordinary fighters from true masters: Zanshin, which translates to the mind that remains. Contrary to what many believe, Zanshin isn't about being perpetually tense or hyper-alert. It's about maintaining awareness, presence, and connection, even after the action is complete. Musashi wrote of warriors who won duels only to be struck down afterward because they had let their guard down too soon. He warned, the battle does not end when the enemy falls. It ends when you are safe. Zanshin, he explained, is the consciousness that never relaxes until everything is truly resolved. Lucas realized he had been living the opposite way. After finishing projects, he would immediately disconnect. After achieving goals, he stopped training. Whenever he solved one problem, he ignored the quiet signs of the next one forming. Life for him was a pattern of short bursts of effort, followed by long stretches of neglect. Inspired by Musashi's wisdom, he began practicing Zanshin in his everyday life. After finishing his push-ups, he resisted the urge to collapse on the floor. Instead, he stood tall for 30 seconds, breathing deeply and staying aware. After a tense meeting, instead of rushing to check his phone, he sat still for a full minute, reflecting on what had happened, processing his emotions and thoughts. These small acts of continued presence began to change everything. Lucas found that by maintaining awareness after each task, he wasn't just completing actions, he was integrating their lessons. Every effort became a teacher. Every pause became a moment of growth. He learned that when you remain conscious even after the battle is done, you don't just win once, you keep winning, again and again. When you tune out too quickly, you lose the wisdom that effort brings. Through Zanshin, Lucas stopped living in cycles of action and collapse, and began living in a state of ongoing mastery. Within 90 days, something profound had shifted inside Lucas. The transformation was no longer subtle. It was visible to everyone around him. At work, his colleagues began to notice the change. "You seem different," they said. "You're more present, man. Nothing seems to shake you anymore." Even his wife, who had seen his daily struggles up close, was astonished. "What happened to you?" she asked one night. "You seem like a completely different person." And she was right. He was different. The man who once lived in fear and hesitation had evolved into someone grounded, calm, and composed, no matter the situation. Chapter 6. Fudoshin, the mind that does not move. But the real test came on day 105. That morning, Lucas was called into an emergency meeting at work. The company had been facing financial trouble, and management was preparing to make cuts. Lucas sat down, and the news hit him like a wave. He was being laid off. The old Lucas would have spiraled instantly. His heart would have raced, his palms would have sweated, and his mind would have flooded with catastrophic thoughts about bills, responsibilities, and failure. But this time, something entirely different happened. He felt the initial sting of shock, acknowledged it, and then silence. His mind didn't react. His body didn't tense up. He didn't try to fight or flee. He simply stayed present with the reality in front of him. "I see," he said, evenly. "What's the schedule?" His boss, surprised by the composure, paused before answering. "You have 30 days. I'm sorry, Lucas." Lucas nodded. "Okay. Thanks for letting me know." He stood up, left the room, and returned to his desk as though it were any other day. Around him, panic spread like wildfire. His co-workers, those who had also been laid off, were crying, frantically making phone calls, and spiraling into fear. Lucas, however, remained calm, not because he didn't care, but because he had developed something Musashi called Fudoshin, the still mind, the mind that cannot be shaken by external events. Musashi once wrote, "The tree is quiet, not because the wind has stopped, but because its roots are deep." Lucas's roots had grown deep. 105 days of disciplined training, 105 days of emotional observation without reaction, and 105 days of unwavering awareness had prepared him for this exact moment. When the storm came, he didn't crumble. He stood firm because he had already faced 1,000 smaller battles within himself. Over the next 30 days, while others were trapped in panic and despair, Lucas remained focused and took action. He updated his resume, reconnected with his professional network, and began interviewing for new roles. While his former co-workers were still struggling to find their footing, Lucas was moving forward. By day 23, he had received 3 job offers. He chose the best one and walked away from his old company, earning 40% more than before. The difference between him and the others wasn't luck, privilege, or timing. It was the deep stillness of Fudoshin, the unshakable mind that endures every storm. A renowned sports psychologist who has worked with Olympic athletes for over 15 years once explained that the difference between those who perform flawlessly under pressure and those who collapse isn't talent, it's tolerance. It's about how much deliberate exposure they've had to discomfort. Resilience isn't something you're born with. It's something you forge, repetition by repetition, moment by moment. Every time you face difficulty and stay present with it, you're training your nervous system, building endurance not just of the body, but of the mind. Chapter 7. Hyoho, the strategy of the void. Musashi had one final principle, perhaps the most difficult to understand, yet the most powerful to apply. Hyoho, the strategy of emptiness. He wrote, "In combat, do not intend to win, intend not to lose." At first it seems like the same thing, but it's not. When you fight with the intention to win, you tend to overextend. You push too hard, expose yourself, and make mistakes. But when your goal is simply not to lose, you stay grounded, measured, and composed. You leave no gaps, no weaknesses, and no openings for defeat. Lucas began applying this concept to his new job. Instead of trying to impress everyone or prove his worth immediately, he focused on consistency and reliability. He arrived on time, fulfilled every promise, avoided unnecessary drama, and never committed to anything he couldn't deliver. 3 months later, he was promoted. His boss told him, "You're not the smartest person on the team, but you're the most dependable, and reliability trumps brilliance every time." That was Hyoho in action. You don't have to be exceptional in every area. You simply need to eliminate weaknesses. Musashi never lost a duel, not because he was faster or stronger than his opponents, but because he never gave them an opening. He studied them, waited patiently for a mistake, and struck with precision. Absolute efficiency, zero waste. Lucas adopted the same philosophy in every part of his life. In his diet, he didn't strive for perfection. He simply cut out all junk food and stayed consistent. In his training, he didn't chase personal records. He just made sure never to skip a day. In his relationships, he didn't try to be the perfect husband or father. He focused on never breaking his word. No loopholes, no excuses, no weak spots. Strength, he realized, wasn't about doing everything right. It was about not allowing anything to go wrong. Chapter 8. Satori. Letting go of the self. 6 months after the beginning of his transformation, Lucas had become almost unrecognizable. His body was stronger, his mind unshakable, and his emotions balanced. But there was still one final barrier he had yet to conquer. He was no longer afraid of failure, discomfort, or external chaos. But deep inside, he carried a different kind of fear. He was terrified that if he stopped even for a single day, everything he had built would crumble. He feared that his strength was fragile, temporary, something that could vanish if he ever let go. That's when he encountered Musashi's ultimate teaching, Satori, or the abandonment of the self. In his final writings, composed shortly before his death, Musashi wrote, "I regret nothing, I fear nothing." These were not just words. They were the reflection of a life lived beyond attachment and ego. To abandon the self is to release the illusion of control, to act without clinging to the outcome, to live with full intensity, but without fear of loss. Lucas finally understood. His training, his discipline, his transformation, they were not about becoming invincible, but about becoming free. Free from hesitation, from self-doubt, from the endless need to prove his worth. True mastery wasn't about power, it was about peace. And on that day, Lucas realized he no longer needed to fight to maintain his strength. He had become it. "I desire nothing." Those were Musashi's final words before his death. a declaration of total freedom. But how does a person reach that level? How do you completely abandon fear and detach from the constant pull of desire? Musashi's answer was radical, simple, and brutally honest. You stop identifying with the outcome. You are not your victories, and you are not your failures. You are only the continuous practice itself. The moment you stop clinging to results and start living entirely in the process, you become untouchable. Lucas decided to test this truth in the most extreme way possible. He stopped counting the days of his training. He stopped celebrating milestones and refused to acknowledge progress as something to be rewarded. He deleted his workout logs, stopped posting updates on social media, and removed every external source of validation. Yet, the training continued, the meditation continued, the discipline continued. But this time, it was different. No ego, no audience, no need to prove or perform. He no longer sought approval or recognition, because he finally understood the essence of Musashi's teaching. You cannot lose what you are, you can only lose what you have. If your strength depends on keeping a streak alive, then you'll always fear the day it breaks. But if your strength is embedded in who you have become, then nothing can ever take it away. At that realization, something unexpected happened, something unsettling. People began to distance themselves from Lucas. It wasn't because he had become arrogant or unkind, but because his presence made others uncomfortable. When you strip away fear, hesitation, and the need for validation, you become a mirror. People can no longer hide behind excuses or self-deception when they're around you. They see reflected in your calm certainty everything they've avoided becoming, and that reflection is painful. His co-workers stopped complaining in front of him. His friends stopped making jokes about his workouts and diet. Even his family started commenting, "You're getting too serious." But Lucas understood what was really happening. It wasn't about him. His transformation simply challenged their comfort zones. His very existence had become proof that what they called impossible was actually achievable, and that truth was uncomfortable to face. Chapter 9. The Complete Transformation. A full year after he began, Lucas was no longer the same man. But it wasn't that he had changed his personality, it was that he had stripped away everything non-essential. He no longer tried to be disciplined, he simply was discipline. Effort had turned into identity. Practice was no longer an activity, it had become his nature. There was no division between training and life, between focus and relaxation, between discipline and joy. Musashi called this final state Kenzenichi, the unity of the sword, and Zen. It represents the moment when mastery and mindfulness become indistinguishable, when your actions flow effortlessly from who you are, not from what you're trying to do. Lucas had reached that point. His strength was no longer something he chased. It was something he embodied. He had become the living reflection of Musashi's ultimate truth. The warrior's path isn't about becoming more. It's about removing everything that is not you, until only the unbreakable core remains. There is no longer any separation between who you are and what you practice. You don't meditate, you are meditation. You don't train, you are training. When people asked Lucas how he managed to maintain such unshakable discipline, his answer was both simple and profound. I have no discipline. I've just eliminated the parts of me that wanted to give up. That was the essence of Musashi's teaching. True mental and physical strength isn't about constantly adding more effort, more tools, more motivation. It's about removing everything that obstructs your essential nature, everything that clouds the core of who you are. You don't need motivation to breathe. You don't need to remind yourself to make your heart beat. Why? Because those functions are fundamental. They are part of what it means to be alive. And that is exactly what training, discipline, and focus must become, as natural and essential as breath itself. When you reach that level, when your practice and your being are indistinguishable, you enter what most people would call the scary level. It's the state where others look at you and whisper, "That's not human." And in a sense, they're right. It's not human as in ordinary. It's human as in realized potential. The version of humanity that most never touch. Miyamoto Musashi died at the age of 62, alone in a cave, writing until his final moments. He had no wealth, no social title, no followers, no worldly status, yet he possessed something far greater than all of those things combined. Absolute mastery over himself. His final words were, I regret nothing. Few people in history can say that. How many reach the end of their lives knowing they lived at the very edge of their capabilities? How many can honestly say they have eliminated fear, hesitation, and weakness? So, the real question isn't how Musashi did it. It's why aren't you doing it? You have access to the same knowledge, the same 24 hours in a day, and the same human body with the same capacity for strength and mastery. The difference isn't in ability, it's in willingness, the willingness to do what's necessary, the willingness to eliminate dependencies, to train until training becomes identity, to strip away everything that isn't essential. This level of mental and physical strength isn't unreachable for the average person. It's simply uncomfortable, and that's why so few ever attain it. Most people choose comfort over capability, ease over growth, distraction over depth. But if you've made it this far, that already says something different about you. You're not part of the majority. You've already proven you have the curiosity, focus, and drive to go further. The question now is, what will you do with this knowledge? If this message resonates with you, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, activate the notification bell, and leave a like to support the work. And tell me in the comments what's the first addiction you'll eliminate. What's the first weakness you'll transform into strength? Remember this, the kind of strength that intimidates others is the only strength worth having. Thank you for your time, your attention, and your willingness to grow. Until next time, keep training, keep eliminating, and keep becoming.